Welcome so much to this talk by me, Cecilie Fjellhøy. You might have seen me from the Tinder Swindler. That was a big documentary on Netflix. And I'm here to have a bit of a different type of talk to you regarding how it is to be a victim and what I endured in the hands of Shimon Hayut, or Simon Levive, as he's known for. And I'm calling this lecture or this talk like fraud in the real world, because a lot of times we talk about online, but this happened both in person and online, which I think is a really interesting aspect to it. But I wanted to start by where I'm coming from, because a lot of the times when people are viewing fraud victims is that we are being labeled as naive or stupid. So I wanted to say that I have a long experience in IT as a UX designer. I have a master in arts and digital experience design. Back home in my home country, Norway, I worked with one of the banks there to create online applications for loans, actually. And I've been helping the weakest in society getting help. So I feel like this is something that I have a bit experience in, both not just from a victim's perspective, but as well as a professional in the IT industry. So how did this come about? You know, I'm thinking not everyone might have seen the Tinder Swindler, so I wanted to take you through a bit about my personal journey with him. And as we all know, I met this guy, Simon Levive, and it's one thing to meet one guy and you say that I met him on Tinder, that's the story. I swiped right, we matched up, and I met up with him in London, and then the infamous private jet ride happened. But I did not just meet Simon Levive, I met so many people. And I think this is what makes this scam so sophisticated. There are people, female, males, drivers. I met his daughter, I met his business partner, Avishai. You met so many people around him, which made this seem so believable, because you never believe that your entire life is like a movie, or as I called it, immersive theater, and you're being almost like set up by this group of people. But I have to say, some of these people were just used unwillingly as well. One of the drivers, for example, that I had just saw Simon as Simon Levive, a very nice businessman that took good care, and he was vouching for him. And then he was using a lot of women. I had dinners with friends, and you met a lot of these women that made him seem believable. So I wanted to take it a bit back, and and that's another thing as well, that I got a lot of images of him having meetings with people. and I've been thinking back on it now, it was to show that he was a business guy and he was doing business. But in reality, I was thinking back, who were these people that he was meeting up with? Did he scam them as well? Most likely, maybe. You know, we know that this case is much bigger than just this dating romance scam. It is companies as well who's been defrauded. So it's so sad that even like pictures like this made me believe that he was a businessman, but maybe this was just one that he was defrauding at the time as Simon Levive. So I want to take you back a bit about how did he do this. I call it 1100 days with Simon Levive and the team, you know. And it was a proper love bombing. Everyone was saying, you know, like, it never felt this way, never. You got roses. That he says he was a man of his words when he came to London and meet up with me here. And then, you know, I gave him a gift as well. And that's when he needed the favor. And how he was scamming was actually saying that he was in danger of his enemies, which is a lot of people have been laughing about now. But at that point in time, he had a bodyguard named Peter. He said that he was in the diamond industry and that he was in danger. They were making death threats and was trying to make him stop working. And he said that his security team in Israel said that he couldn't use his cards anymore. And he was wondering if I could make him, maybe I need a favor, because I had asked him, is there anything I can do? And then he said, can I borrow your credit card? Do you have an American Express? I can put them together and I can use it. Biggest mistake of my life, to say the least. But at this point in time, I felt that he had been giving me so much, and I was committed to him, and I was ready kind of to jump in and save him when he needed me. After a while, the American Express realized I wasn't using the card, because that's how it was. I was based in London. I did not travel around with him, and he was using my card. So he was traveling under Cecilie Fjellhøy all around the world and could use my card. And this is when the digital identity, the online aspects comes in, because in Norway, I started taking up high consumer debt loans and using my digital identity, we call it bank ID in Norway, to take up a lot of these loans. So this is how it started. This is how he was just using my money. He was using it for what he said it needed to use it for: travel and, you know, wine and dine his clients with his team, but we know what the wine and dine is now. And then it started going for the worst. The threats was being more and more, you know, like, I'm scared. I'm saying that to him. He was using Peter as, you know, that this fight in Copenhagen that happened, that his enemies was going after him. He was threatening me that this could happen to me in the end. And at the end, he had lost a big deal that he had worked on. And then you could see the last message. You have me, well, I lost 73 million. I will appreciate some care. You should be next to me, not the other way around. And at this point in time, I was so distraught. I was so pushed down. I had accumulated so much debt that I didn't know how to get out of it. And realizing that you have been defrauded is one of the worst things ever. So I say, like, how could it go so bad in my case? And we all are working with fraud now in different aspects. But he used clear deception, but he used this kind of like, to be in an abusive relationship, how I see it now, that it was the inequality in the power dynamics is so much easier to happen. Like, this was a guy that was pretending to be a CEO that knew everything, and everything he said something, it happened. So he knew so well the diamond industry, is read up. He knew so well about banking, transfers, everything. And he said that this will not be an issue, sorry, that it will not be an issue for him to use my cards. And that was really true. In the end, I gave him my Norwegian MasterCard as well, and no one ever stopped, my bank never stopped that card from being used. So in the end, I had accumulated 9 loans in 8 banks for over $200,000, and that had just happened over 54 days. Like, how is that even possible? And I think what happened to me is that when this happens to you as a victim, you are so distraught, you don't know what to do with yourself. So I went back home. This is the paper from May 2018, where I had to, on the left there, write down all the banks and everything I've taken up in loans, some information. And then this is my mom that had to take over my finances. And this is her writing what she called all the banks and got to know, what do you want me to do now? And say that my daughter has been defrauded. What shall I do? And to write those down, it makes it so clear, you know, finally, what has happened to you. And because this has happened so recently, my realization, and I've gone back to Norway, I blocked him. So I got the first threat from him that he didn't know the reason for me blocking. For every action from your side, it will be a reaction. So just watch out. And to get that and hear his voice be so sinister was scary. But thank God I blocked him. And I think that was a very smart decision to do in the situation I was in. So what happened here is that I was put into acute psychiatric ward. I was getting no caller ID. As you can see, this is a screenshot I took back in the mail of no caller ID. He was calling me all the time. I was trying to ask the banks and financial institutions as a fraud victim to please let me have some time. But as you can see, they were referring to conversation, the email, and even though they understand I'm in a difficult situation, they can't give me like a delay in the down payment. And to get those from just one bank when you have 9 of them, I can't even explain you feel that there's no hope and there's no way out. And what happens as well is that when I then go back to London, I get this email. You're trying to hurt me, you will get hurt. We know you, your family, your friends. Take my advice and back off. To get these type of things, and I think that is why I want to show this to professionals, to show the other side of what might happen when you've been defrauded. So when I was receiving this, I had the banks and financial institutions and investigators, and I had police, I had so much else. And then you had to deal with this. Like, you can play with fire, but you will get burned. This is what he does to all his victims. But he met the wrong woman. I decided that this was not going to scare me, because I was like, how dare you threaten me in the end? So I have always been like thinking, what rendered this possible? I'm going to be quite quick here with this. I think there's 4 different aspects here in my case why it ended so badly. It's the lending practices in Norway. It's the digital identity that at that point in time you couldn't see what kind of situation I was in, how easy it is to use other people's credit cards and the Schengen border. He was a convicted criminal from Finland, but he could travel in and out of the Schengen area without being noticed. So I think this is like, just from that, as a private person, you know, like, how is that even possible? We should be protected from these criminals when he's being convicted. He used my credit card all over the world. 5-star hotels could give it to someone. He said to us, no one cares as long as they get their money. They don't care where it's coming from. We need to stop that. As I said, digital identity as well, you know, it wasn't me. I was being controlled. It was an economic abuse relationship, you know. So digital identity, even though this was me signing papers and stuff, it was him in reality. But in Norway, we have like such a strong thing with the digital identity and the signage of papers digitally. It is like the borrowers is, I was the one doing it. I'm the one that is responsible. And we have so many cases with fraud all over the world. We know that. And then when you have banks and financial institutions then saying that electronic IDs are safer than analogous, and then this is just a temporary problem, and kind of putting it on us as people as the problem and not the tech, I become wary as a user experience designer, because I know that that's not true. Humans have faults, aka then tech will have fault as well if we're using them. And the lending practices in Norway. This is a message I wrote to Simon. I'm almost scared of how easy it is to get loans in Norway without security. No wonder people goes bankrupt here. And now I'm sitting here being bankrupt. So it says, how was it even possible to get over $200,000 of loan for me? There's been raised questions in Norway if they meet good business practice, and as well. So I have a lot of questions still that I am trying to get answers to, but a lot of things went wrong, as you can see here. Just me calling the bank from London while he was using it in Cape Town should have been possible to figure it out. So how did the world respond? You know, like, you know, when you go out as a fraud victim, what are people's reactions, you know? And I got a very sad message, and this is why I was wanting to do this. And I see it as a problem to hear from just in Norway that people have taken their own lives over high consumer debt, not even fraud involved, just that you have high debt. And they felt a great frustration over the system that fraud victims are left battling this. Because I have been battling so much. I had to go to court. I was taken to court by 4 banks where I was called a criminal, naive, and I just wanted a rich boyfriend. I was the first person in this entire case that had to stand trial for this. And I don't think that is fair and something that should be put on the victim. I am strong, but not everyone is as strong as me, and you shouldn't have to be. Meet people with empathy. It's so important. Meet victims with empathy. When this happens to us, we're so far down that we don't know what to do with ourselves. and to meet then banks, financial institutions, and society that are just judging you and not looking at you as a victim. It's almost like you're a victim of a victimless crime, because there are none. It's your own fault that you did what you did. Yeah, I did it, but I was manipulated and brainwashed. I think that's very important to remember when you go into these cases, and if you're trying to stop it in some aspects. And as I said, I wanted to put some of these, what I kind of comments I've been getting as well, because I think it's important why I think maybe it's not being prioritized and victims are not being taken seriously. Like, I love watching you cry on national television for being a gold digger so much. You're a prime example why dating is the way it is. To juggle 4 or 5 women out of their finances at once takes an elite level of patience and finesse. That man should present a TEDx talk to us men. So this guy is the legend. Poor gold digger. Be happy it's not punishable to be stupid. We'll be put in jail. I know that these are just random comments on the internet, and I've received a lot of love as well. But I think it's important maybe to show us as a society how we have viewed fraud victims and why I've been feeling sometimes why this case hasn't been taken as seriously by the police and why I have been battling so much. So I think it's a lot of learnings to be had from this. And I really, really hope that we can create change. And I'm so, so happy that people want to hear my experience and maybe take something good out of it back to their job and maybe make small changes, you know. I know that I can't change the world, but step by step, I feel by talking more about it, talking more about fraud, not making it feel so ashamed for people, meet us with empathy, meet us with kindness, that we are actually traumatized. So thank you so much for listening. I'm so honored and grateful that I was able to talk to you today. And if you ever need to contact me, my email is there. More than willing to come and speak more in depth about what happened, but thank you so much.